All right, we are continuing on with our circadian rhythm series, and today we're going to be discussing artificial light at night, also known as ALAN. If you're totally new to circadian rhythms, have no idea what they are, check out my introduction video where I go over all things circadian rhythm, and I also did a previous video on the benefits of sunlight, so you can check those out if you want to. Otherwise, we're diving into artificial light at night. Don't forget to like, comment, and do all the stuff that a good citizen is supposed to do on YouTube or wherever you're watching this. Okay. So, history of artificial lighting. Prior to the invention of artificial lighting, all we had was sunlight, moonlight, starlight, fire, and perhaps some bioluminescent organisms and fireflies, which I don't know, maybe they're strong enough to impact your circadian rhythm. Pretty sure no one's going to fund that study, so we'll never know. But those are the main sources of light we had for hundreds of thousands of years. The estimates vary, but humans are supposedly 200 to 300,000 years old. And we only invented the light bulb for the last, we'll say 200 years of our existence as a species. So I'm not a mathematician, but that's probably like 0.1, maybe 0.01% of our existence as humans. We had absolutely no artificial light, only these natural sources. And now, obviously, we live in a much different world. We've created LEDs, fluorescent bulbs, which are CFLs, halogens, and screens galore, right? We can't really separate this westernized life from all these sources of artificial light, which have a major impact on our health. So what's the issue with these? So this is a study, a pretty significant study, and the conclusion showed artificial light at night is significantly correlated for all forms of cancer. Okay, that's a pretty bold statement. And immediate measures should be taken to limit artificial light at night in main cities around the world and also inside houses. And this isn't the only study. There's actually plenty of studies coming out now showing the negative effects of artificial light. And something as serious as cancer, most people would have no idea that light is, your light environment is correlated to that. But hopefully I'm going to break it down in this video so you can understand why that's the case and why you should be paying more attention to your light. So obviously getting natural light is very important. So check out that past video for more info on that. But the second piece of this is to make sure you're avoiding artificial light, especially at night, because of the detrimental effects. So we'll go over some basic physiology here. So this is the relationship of cortisol and melatonin, which are your two main hormones that control your circadian rhythms. So the solid line is your cortisol. So if you take a look at that, it peaks early in the morning and it stays relatively high throughout the day and then starts to dip as the day goes on. So cortisol is often demonized as our stress hormone, but I think of it more as our wakefulness hormone. So you want to have plenty of cortisol during the day to help the body perform its daytime functions. But once cortisol starts to decrease later on in the afternoon and night, melatonin has an opposite role. So it starts to increase. And most people know of melatonin as the sleep hormone, but it does a lot more than that. So we'll get into that in a bit, but it's important to understand this relationship. So during the day, cortisol is high. At night, it decreases, whereas melatonin increases. Okay. So the main problem with artificial light at night, in particular blue light, is that it suppresses our melatonin. Okay, so when I'm saying artificial light, not all artificial light has blue light, but the vast majority does. So if you think about your screens, so it doesn't matter if it's your iPad, phone, TV, computer, as well as overhead lights, so LEDs, compact fluorescent bulbs, halogens, those all have a lot of blue light in them, okay? So that's the problem because blue light specifically suppresses our melatonin. So it's a bit of a confusing graphic here, but if you just, look at the left where it says blue light or blue wave length at night. So that light signal gets absorbed through the eyes, goes to a part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and that houses our circadian clock. So it's kind of like the master regulator of our sleep-wake cycle and just our general internal body clock, which is very important. So what happens is that light signal tells the body, hey, it must be daytime because I should only be exposed to blue during the day. But when you have too much blue light at night, this is going to cause increases in breast cancer and prostate cancer. So if you look on the right, you can see some of these different issues, increases in obesity and diabetes risk. So it's going to mess up your metabolic health. Obviously, it'll cause sleep disruption and fatigue, as well as circadian disruption, jet lag, and depression. So a lot of things are related to a disrupted circadian rhythm, and the main culprit is blue light, especially at night. This is one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Jack Kruse. Humans are the only species bright enough to make artificial light, but stupid enough to live under it, which I think is a good encapsulation of humanity right now. We've made all these amazing technological advances, but we don't realize that at the end of the day, many of them are actually killing us. So we need to find that balance. Okay, so melatonin is our sleep hormone, but I like to think of it as our regeneration and repair hormone. So when we go to bed, we obviously have all these wonderful benefits of sleep, and a large part of that is due to melatonin. And in particular, there's two processes that occur in the body. One is called autophagy, and the other one is apoptosis, that are both controlled by melatonin. So autophagy is the recycling of dysfunctional cell parts. So when your cells aren't working properly, or there's certain aspects of them, for example, the mitochondria might not be working properly, your body can actually recycle these parts to create new cells, which is pretty cool. The step up from that is apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. So if your cells aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, you need to get rid of them. Okay, so think about a precancerous cell, or there's other cells called senescent cells, which are basically just floating around, not really doing anything. They're not functioning properly. So you want to get rid of those in order to create room for new cells to come in. So both of those processes are extremely important, and you can kind of think of them as like, two major anti-aging processes that are both controlled by melatonin. Melatonin is also an antioxidant, along with glutathione. Those are two of the body's most potent antioxidants, which help to quell any damage that is accumulated throughout the day. Melatonin is also a very potent anti-cancer molecule. So you may have heard of using this as cancer therapy. And I think that may be an appropriate place to use it supplementally. Of course, supplements, it really depends on your situation, but generally I wouldn't actually advise people supplement with melatonin, because you can produce it internally as long as you're paying attention to your light environment and doing a lot of the general lifestyle things that create good health. But over time, you can run into issues. It generally is a fairly safe supplement, but you don't want to become dependent on exogenous substances, especially hormones. So the more you take of something exogenously from the outside, the less your body is going to produce internally. But there are certain cases such as jet lag, or perhaps when you're older, you decrease your melatonin levels. And if you're having issues with sleep, it may be helpful. But there's also plenty of herbs, for example, that can help to boost your production of melatonin. So that's kind of the route I would prefer. But first line is making sure you pay attention to your light environment. All right, so there's two ways to mitigate your exposure to artificial light at night. One is to change your environment, and the other one is to use some biohacks. So changing your environment is, it's not that hard really, but we're just very addicted to our screens and technology. So for a lot of people, it's going to be difficult. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. So one thing you can do is use candles or any type of fire. So that would be the most natural form. So that was our form of artificial light at night prior to the invention of the light bulb. So that's obviously how we got by for hundreds of thousands of years. Now they actually have red LED bulbs, which are great because it's much easier to use than lighting candles all the time. You can also use something like a salt lamp, the pink salt lamps. They have a very nice spectrum, especially the ones that you can control the intensity. So it's not just the spectrum. So blue is kind of the big bad guy, as well as some green, but it's also the intensity. So if you have like this blaring, super bright screen, it's going to be a lot more impactful than just having, a small light source. So you want to pay attention to both of them, but all of these are, relatively low intensity, as well as they emit more of like a red-orange spectrum. So they're going to be much lower in blue. Another option is incandescent bulbs. Those aren't too great at night, but they are way better than LEDs. Those are actually good daytime options, but they're not the most energy efficient. And lastly, so if you're not able to change your environment, then I would recommend using blue blocking glasses. So these aren't your average blue blocking glasses. They need to be blocking the proper spectrum. So 400 to 550 nanometers is all of blue and part of the green spectrum. So that's the main spectrum that is going to suppress your melatonin if you're exposed to it at night. So you can grab a pair of natural blocks, which are designed to block that spectrum. And they must be orange or red, or else they're not going to be blocking that spectrum. Okay, so if someone is selling you clear lenses and telling you that they're going to block blue light and improve your sleep, it's not going to work. Okay, so they need to look like this. I know a lot of people think they look goofy, but trust me, they work. As soon as you put them on, you get very relaxed. So you wouldn't want to wear these during the day though, because it's important to have blue light during the day, but at night you do not want it. So if you're wearing blue blocking glasses, you can still, flip on some lights and use screens, but I would encourage you to get used to changing your light environment, because that's going to be the most impactful way to improve your health in the long run. Okay, so this just compares some of the different light sources and how they affect your melatonin. So at the top, we have an LED bulb, and you can see here on the spectral analysis. So there's a very sharp spike in blue. Okay, you see that nice big hump of blue there. So that's the issue with artificial light sources generally, especially LEDs, is they have such a high spike in blue, and they're not well balanced by the other colors. And especially at night, you don't want any blue. So during the day, it's one thing you can get by, but you definitely don't want to be having a lot of that at night. So that's going to cause about an 80% melatonin suppression. Same with fluorescent lamps, so around 80%. Now, incandescent bulbs are much better. That's only about a 40% suppression of melatonin. And you can see it has a much smoother spectrum there, okay? So there still is some blue, but it has much more red, and it's much more similar to what the sun spectrum is. Candle, same thing, nice smooth spectrum. It has much less blue light, and the intensity is much lower. So if you look on the left, you can see the descending intensities. So 6,000 Kelvin, 5,500, 2,700, etc. So the less intensity is going to be important, as well as a small amount of blue light. And lastly, we have, this is just like a candle light style OLED. So that would be similar to having like a red LED, a low intensity one. So those are both good options at night. So I would recommend candle or an LED that is red and has a low intensity. So strategies, as we just discussed. So when the sun is down, you don't want to be exposed to any blue light. So I know that's difficult for a lot of people, especially if you live in a northern hemisphere during the winter, but that would be the optimal way to do it. If not, it takes about 3 to 4 hours of darkness, or I should say absence of blue light, in order for your body to release melatonin. So you can throw on your blue blockers or change your light environment so you're not exposed to much blue light 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. Ideally, if you can't do that, anything helps. So even 1 hour before you go to bed, put the screens away and just do something relaxing, buy some candles, and you'll notice a big difference in your quality of sleep. So number 2 here is your eyes are most important. So that's why blue blocking glasses work great, but your skin also has photoreceptors that absorb light and can send signals to your body. So you would want to cover your skin ideally if you're exposed to a lot of blue light after the sun sets. All right, so that's it for today. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you're interested in a pair of blue blocking glasses, we do have the nighttime glasses, as I mentioned. These are our daytime energy glasses. So they're obviously not as much of a red tint, but they can be very helpful during the day when you're using screens and exposed to blue light during the day. As I said, you do want some blue light. So you want to be spending plenty of time outdoors, but if you're stuck in front of a screen all day, the daytime energy glasses can be very helpful. So if you want either of those products, you can go to naturalblocks.com and use the code NATUROFAM, because you're part of my family, for 10% off. And as well, you can check us out on Instagram at NaturalBlocks and at Nature Academy, where we share all sorts of different health tips. So that's it. Thank you. And we'll see you in the next video.